We have been covering closely the legal implications surrounding the White House job offer to a promising Democrat are far from over. Critics say that reaching out to Pennsylvania Senate candidate Joe Sestak through former President Bill Clinton was illegal and needs to be investigated independently. Others believe that it was not. Now, California Republican Darrell Issa suggesting that there may be something fishy going on here in his opinion. Listen to what he said this weekend.
Do we believe this is a further cover-up because they're now talking about a job that President Clinton himself should have known Sestak couldn't take?
Because he was going to continue in the House, so he couldn't take even an unpaid position in the administration.
That's the point, is maybe he did offer it to him, but it's very clear that what they were doing is they're now coming up with a non-plausible answer. It's the reason the FBI needs to investigate this. An independent from me, independent from the president, needs to investigate and get to the bottom of this, so we can all move on.
So we can all move on, says Issa. Keith Sullivan is a defense attorney, and he joins me now. Keith, you know, as you look at any case, right, you're sort of hearing depositions in some ways from all sides at this point. If you're the attorney looking at both sides of this, do you believe what the White House is saying about how all of this played out and the person, Bill Clinton, who was designated to offer that position?
We have no reason not to believe the White House at this point in time. There's absolutely no evidence that Bill Clinton attempted to encourage or urge Sestak to do anything other than consider all of his options. And that alone is not a bribe. I neither voted for this administration nor am I a proponent of theirs. But what they did is not illegal under the statute.
What about the fact that certain things seem not to add up? For example, Sestak, when he was, when all this first came up, he was doing a radio interview. And he was asked during that interview, were you ever offered a federal job to get out of this race? He said, yes. Now, would you consider a non-paying position on a presidential panel a federal job?
No, and I don't think the federal courts under the statute that the Republicans are citing to would find that either. They're citing to 18 U.S.C. 201, 595, and 600. That talks about value. The word job.
But Sestak says right here that he was offered a federal job.
It's a
so it makes one wonder when you hear that no, it wasn't actually a job, it was an unpaid position on a presidential panel, and then you hear the questions raised that in his position as a sitting congressman, he wasn't in a position to even accept a position on a presidential panel, thanks to passage of a rule that was put through by none other than President Clinton.
Himself,
so it seems odd, I think, when a lot of people hear this, that it just doesn't add up, in terms of what the offer was and who it came through.
It is certainly typical Washington dirty politics as usual, but it is not illegal. It's gone on both sides of the aisle. That doesn't make it okay. But you have to look at the statute. What Republicans are banking on is that the word value in the statute will be considered a job. It's not a job, first of all. It's a volunteer pro bono position.
But Sestak is the one who said he was offered a job.
Sestak misspoke because a job, by definition, is something where you receive compensation. This was a non-compensable position.
If indeed that's what offered, I agree. But the interviewer went on to say, was there a job offered to you by the White House? To which Sestak nodded and replied, yes.
Absolutely.
Someone offered it.
He used the word job, and he's erroneous in his use of that word job. But what the Republicans need to do, and particularly Issa, is read the rest of the statute. It talks about offering value, and Issa is using the word job for that.
I've read that statute. A lot of people would argue that value. Why would former President Bill Clinton offer anything that wasn't valuable? Because if it wasn't valuable, there's no reason why Sestak would sign on for that kind of agreement in the first place. The
linchpin to the defense of this is that further in the statute it says value in consideration for political activity. Now, Sestak has not taken on any political activity for the quid pro quo of that job.
Why wouldn't the White House, in your opinion, say, look, obviously our attorney puts out our statement. This is our side of what happened. What Joe Sestak has said raises a lot of questions about whether or not that is indeed how everything played out. Why not have a special prosecutor look into it, or have the FBI look into it? And then you have the freedom to say, look, we kept this at arm's length, and clearly nothing happened.
The White House handling in this scandal, if we'll call it that, has not been the best. It's not exemplary like many other situations that they've had to handle. That's what they should have done from the forefront, is gotten out ahead of this, told their story, explained. And again, you have to look at the statute, and the application of the statute is equally important, if not more important, than the letter of the words.
The point is that no one's going to know if stories were changed or if Rahm Emanuel, exactly what transpired in all of this, or if maybe, as some people, the most extreme situation would be that Bill Clinton came in after the fact and said, I'll cover for you guys. I'll tell them we had a conversation. We're never going to know if anything along those lines happened, and people won't put this to rest unless they hire an outside person to say just that.
I agree with you. I think there should be an independent investigation. Let it run its course. I don't think ICE should be out in front of the cameras running this campaign against Obama. It's not appropriate, and it's not illegal what the White House did. And I think the investigation will flesh all that out. But again, the linchpin is the quid pro quo, and you just don't have it here.
Exactly. And that is the legal sentence where this needs to play out. Keith, thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you.
to talk to you today. Thanks
Great
for
to be
coming in
here.
on Memorial
Thank you,
Day.
always.
Thank you, sir.
Well, all across the country.